Okay, everyone, thank you for joining. We'll go ahead and get started on today's presentation, which is AI, Power Your Architecture Business with Custom Development. Today's in this course, we're going to talk about some of the cutting edge of AI. We all know that AI is changing a lot. So some of this will just cover where today's developments are generally and some good ideas for how it can be deployed in your architecture business. You want to learn how to possibly deploy some AI technologies yourself, or how to best work with a consultant to realize some business benefits using AI with more advanced software development. And this course is registered with the AIA. This will be our third year working with the AIA, so we really appreciate working with the community. And I'd like to remind everyone, if you have any questions along the way, or if you think of some, please post them in the chat. Isabel will be monitoring the chat, and we'll address questions at the end. Usually if we get a few good questions, it makes the presentation much more valuable. We go in thinking of what we want to share, but often the great nuggets come out of questions. So please think of that and think of things to post. So here we go. This is going to be about powering your business with AI, which really means is to help you realize some of your business objective. We're going to be talking about moving faster and using some of these tools. So three of us will be speaking today. I'm Jim. I'm here with a little bit of introduction. I'm going to talk about some cybersecurity issues related to AI down the road. We're really pleased to have Connor. Connor is very expert in this area, as expert as anyone can be, because what we're talking about now, this is new. So we're here giving just an update of some of the new ways to work. Isabel, you'll be hearing from her towards the end of the presentation. This is what we're going to be covering. So Connor will start out going over the current AI model progress. This is what we read in the news, and then what's the latest updates generally in AI and how it's being used in business. We're going to talk about some cybersecurity. Additionally, when the main bulk of this is really using AI application development in your architecture business. Now, when we're talking about application development, what we're really talking about is the 20% of your practice that is probably not covered with off-the-shelf software. Probably 80% of your software needs are handled by software like Autodesk, Microsoft Suite, Google, off-the-shelf software. But there's 20% of your business that probably is getting worked manually, maybe with things like with spreadsheets, with lots of extra communication internally. So this is what we're addressing, this 20%. You want to think in your business, what are some areas that you can automate, that you can streamline and make a custom application for this. Now, previously, unless you were a very large business, this was unaffordable to streamline this 20%, to hire maybe a full stack developer to program this for your business. But we're going to show that this is something that someone fairly technical at your business, but not an actual developer, can do. Or you can use these techniques to work with someone technical, someone like Connor, to help develop this type of application for your business. The key is for you to do is to recognize the opportunity, to recognize the spot where you guys are spending some extra time doing repetitive work. And a tiny bit about us. We're all from RightClick. RightClick is a local managed service provider. That means is what we do is we work for businesses primarily in Southern California. We actually help businesses all through the country to be more effective, use technology more effectively, and stay cyber secure. That's our mission. With that said, I'll hand off to Connor. And like I also said, please think of any questions you might have and post them on the chat. Isabel will be tracking those questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. So today I'm going to talk a few points about AI. I'm sure you're all aware of the large companies that are kind of heading the front of AI, OpenAI, Anthropic, which is based on Amazon, and Google, which is Gemini. So we can kind of see over the past year, there's been a few trends. Mainly, OpenAI has been leading the pack in the mid of 2024, with their reasoning and thinking models, so the O models. Then Anthropic came in with their Claude models and really stepped up the reasoning and coding abilities, allowing some of that development that Jim talked about. So having somebody technical, they can communicate with a Claude model and get some pretty useful application code to solve some of these problems if you identify them well enough. And then 2025 has just been an explosion. I'm sure all of you are aware of DeepSeek and some of these Chinese open source models. They're really competing. We started. One second. Sorry. Apologize for my camera. DeepSeek and some of these Chinese open source models really pushed the envelope as far as we really didn't have that competition. And so now you're seeing real innovation and progress from the US based companies. Currently, the best model out there across the board is going to be Gemini from Google 2.5 Pro. They had actually an updated version come out about a week ago. One really nice place to go, if you're unaware, is LM Arena. LM Arena is going to be this benchmark leaderboard style where you can really find where's the best model from which company, and it's blind testing from users, and so it's really accurate and gives you some of the best results as far as who's really the best model. And it gives you a lot of filtering ability. So if you have a specific use case, you can find what's the best model to use for that use case. And we'll share with that link at the end. So I'm going to talk a little bit about current limitations of AI. There's two real sides of it. The technology boundary is when you get into certain niches and certain specific industries, they're not as fine-tuned and developed in those industries. Most of the money and the work has been done on the OpenAI, Gemini side with the frontier foundational models. And so all of these separate companies usually use that as a base, and then they build some feature or a thing on top of it. But most of the innovation and change comes from those models being updated from the large companies. The other side of it is the human factor. So AI has been at this PhD level of reasoning and capability for maybe about 6 months. And so it's really important to know how to prompt, how to talk to the AI to get it to really in-depth think about the answer. Because if you just give it, I want a simple answer, it's going to give that simple answer for you. It's not going to think harder than it needs to. So that's one thing is adopting this really intelligent AI and using it for some useful things inside of your business. So here's a few examples of cutting edge things that are happening. This is a Google model that does text to video generation, which is a newer field. And it's pretty accurate. So in this case, I told it to make an outdoor shopping center with a water feature and maybe a grass area with some games. So it made the 7-second video. Play that really quick. So you can see almost photoreal, pretty accurate water feature in the middle. And this took maybe 30 seconds. So I'll play it again. One thing I want to show you is on the lawn, some of the, some of the lawn games move by themselves. And so it's not quite perfect. It's kind of where image generation was maybe a year ago, where there's things you can tell that aren't quite right. So image generation with OpenAI has gotten to that point where it's gotten near perfect text. And so it's going to follow suit, I would say, in the next year, where image generation is gonna get a lot better. Moving on, one of the other things I showed last presentation was image to 3D model from a company named Meshi. They've updated their process a few different ways, so to get better models. They do a preview section where you get like a preview of 4 different generated versions of your 3D object. In this case, I used a chandelier. It allows you to not have to go through so many times if it generated a bad object. So it's a really nice update to this application. Just to showcase, I did a chandelier and then I exported it and opened it up in Blender. So it did texturing and everything like that. And from last year, if you go back, you're going to see it's a little bit more accurate in the texturing. It's a little bit more photorealistic. And so they're making progress on this front as well. Go to the next application. I'm going to hand it over to Jim to talk about a little bit of the data safety and privacy with public AI.
All right, thanks, Connor. So after this section, we're going to talk about, or Connor's going to share about how to use some of these tools to deploy AI yourself or with a helper. And first, before you get to that part, we want to address data security or data safety. Now, a good way of thinking about this is thinking about 3 different ways that you can work with AI. Number 1 would be like using a free AI tool, really available online. Now, we all know, like, common sense wise, this is going to be your least secure option. The data, you're training the AI model, and the AI model will remember. So if you're working on a project, you upload some drawing for the project that's permanently public. That might be a compliance issue for you, especially if some type of government project. Something you don't want to use. You don't want to use a public model. There's some downside with a public model too, where it won't actually have access to enough of your information. So when you go back later to ask it questions, it's not as helpful. So this public model is not really appropriate for this. But there's 2 other ways to go. One is called self-hosted. And when you go self-hosted, this is, you can see here, it's the open source model. So there's models by Meta, by DeepSeek. There's various models. You download them, you run it on your own environment, either like an on-premise server, or if you have a cloud, like your business is using Google Cloud or Microsoft Cloud, you can upload it to there. But then this is actually like your AI model locally. This is a really great source for control. You have full control to this. There's a little more work here. So you'd want to have more of a technical resource, like someone outside that's highly technical or in your company. You're signing yourself up for a little more work here, because like anything, like this model that you downloaded, it'll need to be updated and patched, and you'll be responsible for that, like cybersecurity wise. So if there becomes some bug in this, you'll want to be keeping that up to date. The last model is to use an API access. This is usually the most appropriate model if we're talking small business working with AI. API access means there's no hosting that you do, no computer that you get, nothing you downloaded. It's entirely provided by the service provider. So for instance, if you're using like Gemini's paid service through Google, or you're using OpenAI, you pay for an API account. It's all hosted with the provider. When you have the business account with them, that data is secure. It's locked to your business. You're relying on the provider's capability that they attest to that it's secure, and they're continuing to update it. So you're paying more of on like a per transaction basis, which is getting lower and lower as time goes on. So usually the API model is the best way to go. But you either want paid API or download an open source model. Now, this is just some of the information. This is like how like an enterprise AI model works. Very similar between OpenAI with ChatGPT and with Google. There's a lot of auditing and control here, so it'll really show what it has access to. I don't want to overcomplicate this, because our real recommendation, especially if we're assuming for the purpose of this class, this is like your first move into really using an AI to develop something at your business. And a good first move is to limit the scope. And this is also when I'm talking about cybersecurity, limiting the scope is very important, which it means limit what it can see. So maybe like what a good thing that you might want to automate is maybe you have some code information that you want to get updated on your plans. And some of this code is, there's a certain resource, a database, or some files that you have the codes or the plans. You only give it access to that. You tie it to the AI, you prompt it, and it'll create those codes for you. So you limited the scope. There's not too much it can see. It'll show everything it can see. And then what you do is you should, if this is working for you, you iterate and you go back. And this is a constant process with your business, so you can gradually expand the scope. So just to summarize, cybersecurity with AI really means, number one, don't use a public AI. Okay, either if you're building something a little larger and you have higher technical capability, maybe download an open source model. But now when you do that, now you're signed yourself up for a little more work with that to keep that thing up to date, or get an API access, a programming access into a paid model of one of the big providers. That's a little bit easier to do, and you just pay as you go. It's a light pay, and then limit your scope. And the limit the scope is not the technical person's role as much as the person's role that's deciding what we're going to automate or what we're going to do with AI. Take something small, you can get a quick win because the development process with AI is actually pretty fast. So you can start out with something light, and usually cybersecurity, the issue is less on the AI model and more about what type of data you're getting access to or how it's getting shared in your organization. So by limiting what everyone can see, that really helps. With that said, I'll hand back off to Connor, and he's going to show some examples of how you would develop this.
Thanks, Jim. I'm going to look at a use case, and we're going to share the code for this afterwards. And what this is going to be a local instance of Google Cloud's Vertex, which is using enterprise grade security. And this is that limiting the scope Jim was talking about, and it uses basically API access uses API access to give you that frontier, really smart model. And then you can give it things like a PDF document and ask it to review the project or review the plans and give you insight or feedback on that. So in this case, I'm going to delete this local version. It's going to be this initial one file setup. And you guys can reach out to us after the event if you guys want help setting this up. We can provide that assistance. It's very quick. I'm going to run the setup file. What it's going to be doing is creating the directory. It's going to be creating some folders, and it's going to be creating, this virtual environment for that AI to interact. Most of this stuff you don't really need to know too much, and so give it 1 minute to install some of these packages. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to go to Google and sign up for a Google Cloud account. This is going to give you $300 of credits if you don't have one already, and you have 90 days to use this API credit. So it's no cost initial, so you can get a test out, and it's going to give you a project, and you're going to have a project ID. In this case, I'm going to copy it here. The project's set up now, and I have some next steps here. So it's going to tell me where to go. In this case, there's this environmental file, and we're going to be replacing this project with our project ID that we just created. So everything else is fine. We have Gemini 2.5 Pro, which is the most current model. It's actually the #1 model on the LM arena across the board, from coding to logic to reasoning. So we go in here and we modified the application file, and we're going to go and take this Google Cloud authentication login. It's going to open up a login to authenticate through Google. We're going to give it an allow, and that's going to allow that application that we just deployed to have that Google access. Now that we're in the application, we're going to run this app file, and that's going to run on our local machine. Give me a second, sorry. What version of this? Give me 1 moment. I had a version I just modified. Of course. Here we go. Okay, so in this case, this is a basic web page. This is running locally on my computer, and it's using Gemini through Vertex, which is their enterprise grade security. So we have that Gemini Pro model selected. In this case, I found a nice PDF of a proposal for a splash pad and outdoor area for a city. This is from 2021. So what I'm going to do is, if I can get this Zoom thing out of the way, what I'm going to do is, man, the Zoom's in the way. We pull this down. I'm going to open up that window that we had. I'm going to upload that PDF of this aquatics. And this is all secure usage. So now it's going to take this 36-page PDF, and I can say, give me a 30-word summary of the PDF. please. It's gonna then evaluate the PDF. That's also on me. One moment. Always fun doing live demos. Vertex. Console. Yes, double check my environment file. We've got the correct. Yes, that's correct. Quick hi. This message. Non-PDF, not server, please re-upload. Okay, we need a PDF. Sorry about the delay. Should be done soon. I have the incorrect authentication. So I have a few different versions of this test demo. See if we can re-authenticate. Should be this here. This doesn't seem to work. Essentially, what it would do is it uses that API access. It uses PDF files that you'd upload. And then you can ask questions about it, say like, what are the top 3 safety risks or any overlooked issues in this PDF that you could see. Let's do a quick text message. Vertex API project. Okay. It seems to be an issue with this cloud project ID. My apologies on this. We can we'll upload a separate video of this demonstration. Man, worked so hard on it. So that was the local deployment where you could use Gemini in a secure way. Apologize for the demonstration. I know sometimes live demos don't go as planned, but we'll keep going on a few different things that we've deployed. So in this case, this is like a context-aware image generation. So if you've ever seen generating images, it can sometimes have some artifacts. It can sometimes have some, undesired characteristics or unproportional pieces. If we look here, we trained images on the Irvine spectrum as a use case. What we did is we annotated those images, and it takes that style, extracts it, and kind of quantifies that. So when you generate images in this custom way, it uses that style to then generate the new image. So here's a little bit of the back end where we told it to generate a outdoor area with a nice little table to sit and eat. And it's using the style extracted from the trained images of the Irvine spectrum. Apologize. And so you can kind of see it's got the terracotta kind of style of colors and that water feature that we asked for in the middle. Let's continue on. So if you can see here, we've got an untrained on the left, trained image on the right. You really eliminated a lot of those artifacts, multiple signage, because you're giving it what, a storefront it should look like at the Irvine spectrum. And then here's a few other images we got out of the trained model. A few of these you may not even be able to tell, specifically this one on the left really blew me away. It's very accurate to what the Irvine spectrum looks like if you've ever been there. Then we took it a step further with edge mapping for image generation. What this does is it includes this extraction of a input image to kind of get a depth and an edge map, and then generate a new image on that so that it matches the size and styling and the actual physical characteristics of the area. We're going to go into a couple of use cases. These are applications which stemmed from companies identifying a problem, coming to us and saying, hey, we have this issue. What can you guys do to help us? The first one is a company called Bucola. They do our landscaping. They had a custom application actually developed for them about 20 years ago. And it started to crash, started to have problems. And they already tried and hired somebody before, which was unsuccessful to recreate their application. We came in, we're using AI to rapidly develop a prototype, and now it's a production ready application. And what it does is it really tailors to their business and it makes it really reliable. And there are currently 5 to 10 people using it regularly and really positive feedback from the process. Here's a quick example of them generated proposal in the system. It's got everything from user management to audit trails. And so it pulls in data and generates proposals and reports exactly how they wanted them to be. The next use case we're going to show you is for a company that does real estate planning. And what they had is an application called ArcGIS Desktop. This application was discontinued, and it was really a core part of their business. About 15 to 20 people regularly would go in, create these maps where they could export demographic data and create these maps for project proposals and plans. So it took about an hour and a half typically to create a map. And we came in and we made a really nice application for them to create these maps. And it's really, I mean, I can't tell you how much it's changed their day to day to be able to continue working the way that they had set up their workflows. And so here's a quick example of what the map application looks like. You've got a nice front end, very intuitive, where you can create different areas like county or zip code boundaries. You can select them on the map. You can give them different colors, and then you can export those geographic areas with income, median household, population, density, and it's really just a quick and fast way for them to continue using the workflows they had previously used in their old application. So there's a heat map. You can edit the different color breaks and distributions, or even like a dot density map is the other example. Oh, and then I'll quickly show the exporting data. So it exports data for them. They preferred an Excel sheet of data. So it goes in and gives them, based around the zip codes and the exports they had, ages, and there's hundreds of thousands of variables through API access that they're able to export. Now we've got a Q&A section. I'm going to hand it over to Isabel, and we'll see if we have some good questions from you guys.
Okay, yeah, thanks a lot, Connor. So yeah, Isabel will jump in just 1 minute. And just to summarize, I know this was a lot to cover in a quick lunch training session. So what you really want to get out of this is hopefully you can see the process that's involved in creating an application like this. And you can think about inside your firm, if you have some of these basic technical skills to work with the providers, like with Google, OpenAI, Microsoft's Copilot, these things can help you make these applications. The neat process that Connor showed, where he's actually showing his code, how he does it, it's very similar with all those platforms. So the key is come up with the idea, something to automate, have some technical resource at your firm or someone on the outside to help you realize that code with one of these AI platforms. And it's a quick development process. It's something fast. And some of those sample apps showed at the end. Those are
Hi,
a few
Sharon,
months.
how are you?
So those are a few months of development work.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
oh, it's like Ollie, I think I hear you on there. Okay. But beyond that, yeah, so I hope this helps kickstart some AI projects inside your businesses. I'll hand off to Isabel now, and if we have any questions, we can hit them up.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Connor and Jim, for your valuable insight about AI and cybersecurity today. I did actually personally have some questions that I dropped in the chat there, Connor, if you wanted to address those. Those were just my personal queries. My first question is about Gemini. You mentioned it being superior to ChatGPT and Copilot. It was endorsed by the helpful ranking tool that you shared, Ella Marina. I was just wondering, as a developer, is it because of the free tools that Google allows you to build with? I was just wondering if you personally also prefer Gemini.
Yeah, I would say Gemini, the one thing it really excels at is its context window. And what that means is the amount of content that you can feed in while still getting an answer is a million tokens, which to kind of quantify that, I think it's 1,000 to 1,500 page PDF would be the limit. So most current AI models like Claude or OpenAI, GPT, they've got maybe 128,000 to 256,000 token. So it gives you a lot more room to work with, as well as being free to use is really nice. If that's the public use. So just for fun and learning development, that's a good way to start. As far as the private use, it also extends that same context window. So it's really helpful to be able to fill a bigger application. The further you get on in the development cycle, if you have more and more features, it becomes harder to use one of the more limited models in order to kind of keep it all together.
Great, thanks for explaining that. It looks like I had a second question, but someone else chimed in. The question there is, what hardware is required to run the latest Gemini?
Yeah, what's really nice is Gemini uses that API access, so you could run it on anything. So there's no hardware requirement to run it because you're using external API usage for the AI. All the AI usage is handled on the Google servers, so you don't need any locally.
That's great. My second question, it looks like we have, a couple coming in. That's great. Thank you everyone for chiming in. One of the questions I see is, will we get a copy of this recorded meeting? Yes, after we wrap up here, you will get a link to the recording as well as the presentation slides and our contact information if you want to reach out, learn more. Some of these other questions, let's get to those. One person says, will you shed some light on AI agents? How do they work? How do their use case versus traditional AI? There's a couple questions here. What is,
Yeah.
If you want to go through the first portion there.
Agents is a newer development. And so typically when people talk about agents, there's a few things. One part is like an autonomous agent, which is not super, out, like it's not in use really. And that's the idealized, I want to do a hard task, go ahead and use my computer, do the thing, do the task. So that's the like autonomous agent. But as far as agents, you can build an agent which is like has specific guidelines and guardrails so that it responds in the way that you want it to.
And I see they're asking about A to A too. So this is agent to agent communication. So this is the main thing that's coming in AI this year, which is some of what we talked about in this session is addressing that 20% of your software needs that are custom, that aren't addressed by open shelf, existing software. And by going through this little bit of hard work that got easier now with AI to create this yourself, well, an A to A is you have multiple AI agents that are specialized in something and they are talking to each other in your business. So if you have some agent that's good at some of the design work and some agent that's good at some documentation, they can talk to each other. And this is emerging. This is what would be on the roadmap for the rest of the year from the big providers. I see someone's asking about if RightClick has webinars or classes about AI. We do regular webinars monthly or quarterly. So if you're interested, you can visit our website, or we're free to share with anyone on this list. So our webinars are usually either centered on cybersecurity or new developments for productivity, which is mostly AI.
And yeah, to Paul's question on like if we have like a class, we can definitely set up some meetings and kind of talk about like what thing you'd like to make. We can kind of point you either in the right direction if you'd like to do some of the development yourself, or we can actually help you kind of develop that minimum product to kind of showcase if it is going to be something valuable to like really delve in and make a full thing out of. Awesome.
All right, great. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
I think the last question is the second one I posed. You were gonna show us something that you were built to demo. I was wondering if you could just briefly touch on that again. I was curious about the project you were trying to run. If you could describe.
Oh, yeah,
in a couple
so the
words.
project I was trying to run, it uses, I mean, it's a super simple setup script to make a basic web application. And that application allows you to upload files like PDFs. And then it uses a connection back to Google, like a secure connection, encrypting all the data in transit, allowing you to ask a question about that document you've uploaded in a completely tunneled and secure environment. So if you had some sort of sensitive, confidential, financial data that you wanted to review, you would never put that in like DeepSeek or ChatGPT, because that just goes out. They can train their models on your data, big compliance risk. You'd be able to upload a PDF or something like that and have a very secure little environment that you can ask questions about it.
Thanks for explaining that. I do want to invite anyone, if you wanted to come off mute to ask any questions. If not, the chat is still available at this time. So we'll wait a couple more minutes. We are done a little bit early. If no one has any more questions, we'll give you back some time in your day. But for the meantime, let's just see if there's any more queries.
And on that demonstration application, I'll do a little cleaning up on the code, and then we'll send that out with some detailed how-to instructions on how to get that running yourself, so that you can try and test it and run it yourselves.
Having a few problems is probably a more real-world example of what happens building these.
Yeah, there's typically a little bit of friction. It's not exactly everything works first try, but it's definitely way easier now with all the AI help. Thank you so much for the comment.
Right. If we have no more questions, that's our presentation that we have for you today. We'd like to thank Aiaoc for allowing us to give this presentation, and everyone for joining today and taking some time out of your day. We hope you learned some valuable actionable AI tools and how you can securely develop if you wanted to for your architecture business. Like I mentioned, you'll be receiving some follow-up communication. Look for that in your email inbox, and we'll give you 20 more minutes back in your day if no one has any more questions.
Thanks, guys.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Thank you, Isabel and team. It was awesome.
Great. Thanks.
Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.